Music literature. Bright is the ring of words when the right man rings them. Fair the fall of songs when the singer sings them. Now, our male singers in the room, I'm guessing, will recognize this test. Yeah. Mike is shaking his head up and down. Yes. What's it from when it's set to music, Micah?
Songs of Travel. Yeah,
Songs of Travel. Yes. Set by Vaughan Williams. Here again, we have a text that's really quite profound, which is set to music, which is now more famous than the text that it was based on. But if we go back and look at what do we think the point of these words are? Similar, actually, to the whole point of Capriccio, which is the whole point of Prima la Musica, is that when the two art forms are together with words and music, then we actually pay attention and there's something quite special going on. That's my hope, that we will, at least once a week, return to that premise as we look at a whole bunch of songs and try and examine what's going on that makes this so very special for all of us. Okay? The goals. First, I'll play this. This is what I won't do, even though I have a shaved head. Have any of you heard this phrase, the sage on the stage?
What'd you say? I'm scared.
Sage on the, you're supposed to be scared.
I had to bring sage on the stage?
Yes, the sage on the stage is something that many professors do. It's an environment that is set up that the professor has all the answers and you guys have none. That's not what we're going to do, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Alexander, what did you say?
Just being a smart ass, you can continue.
All right, so instead of that, this is an advanced level seminar, which means you guys are going to be teaching each other at least half of the time, all right? I will, in a few moments, set out the framework on how that's going to look. We're going to base this course on repertory that each of you already know, but repertory perhaps that you haven't researched yet and that you haven't had the experience of introducing to an audience. So that's going to be part of your job. Then my job takes over and I'm going to fill in the blanks, sewing it together so that we get an overview of all of song literature. We are not, however, going to look at every song ever written. We are not going, it's just not humanly possible, okay? We're going to get an overview. It's my hope that this will give you an outline at the end of the class, that as you move forward in life, that then when you hear a Strauss song, that you can actually relate it to maybe some of the Strauss that you were just listening to and go, oh, wait a minute. I kind of get what he was doing, and that relates to what Mozart was doing, and it relates to what Schoenberg was doing in the following ways, okay? That's my hope. We are going to look at, as this slide says, all of vocal literature, not just song literature. We're going to focus primarily on song literature because there's a whole lot there, and that's because this is what this course traditionally does, but we're also going to look at not only classical art song, but there's no N in that word, oratorio, opera arias, musical theater, Gilbert and Sullivan, which, as you all know, is coming up pretty soon. G and S is what Gilbert and Sullivan is often abbreviated to. Here I am again. No, that's not me, but I might look tonight in just a few hours. They're painting me up to look pretty much like that. Is the way I use that slide. Yes, be very frightened. What this class will not be, it will not resemble your voice classes, okay? It's intended, we're going to have a rather formal structure to it, and I'm going to outline that in a minute, but it is not an advanced voice class. That's what, I say that very strongly because that's what vocal literature was when I took it when I was in school. That was the pattern, is just, I don't know, who wants to sing today? Okay, well, get up and, well, oh, okay, that was vocal literature. And there was no attempt to connect the dots between why did he sing this and what does that Wolf song have to do with that Mozart song? That's what we're hoping to do. It will not be another history class that was just going to rehash all of the stuff that you guys have already learned. Oh, you know what, speaking of, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to take a moment to find out what it is you guys have already learned. Who's taken opera history? Or let's say who hasn't? And me, okay, 3, good deal. Alexander, I can barely see you. There you are, thank you. Can you move in just a little bit so I can make sure that you're not falling asleep? Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so how about the history sequence? How many of you have had all three of them? Okay, how many of you have had two of them? How many have had only one? Micah, that's you? Okay, that helps me just know what information you're bringing to the table.
Assume I'm bringing anything.
But you didn't make brownies? Come on. It is not going to be a study, as I said at the beginning, of everything ever written. That's just not humanly possible. It's, again, that puts me in the position of being the sage on the stage that knows everything. I don't know everything. I learn something every time I teach this class. I love teaching this class. There will be areas of it that you guys know better than I do, and I look forward to that, okay? So together we'll move through what I hope will be a lot of fun. Instead, we're going to base this on repertory which is already scheduled by your voice teachers. What I will not do is pick out rep for any of you guys, okay? Make sense? That's my commitment to you. I also, I'll insert right here, what I'm also not going to do, we have this unusual situation that I'm both a voice teacher and the teacher instructor of this class. Please know that that does not mean Molly and Micah get special treatment or any kind of different instruction than the rest of you, all right? That's my commitment to you. In exchange, I'd like back from you guys, we're going to talk about this in a second, sort of a mutual respect with each of you. I have a unique relationship, which I adore. Often it's funny and sarcastic in the hallway. Let's see if we can not do that in this class, okay? Just because it has a way of cutting out the real content that we're trying to do, all right? So that's my commitment to you, is that I will try my very best to respect each of you and to treat you like the artists that you're becoming, not as students, okay? We're going to cover here. I talk about the concept for this class came out of an educational program that I did for New York City Opera. They did an experiment and hired me 3 years in a row to go into the New York City elementary schools and teach them about opera. But each year they said, let's try something different. The first year, they sent us to as many schools as they possibly could, and in hopes that that would educate more students and bring in more people to the opera. The second year, they said, oh, okay, well, that was maybe too many schools. Let's limit the number of schools and see if we can add a little more content. The third year, they limited the number of schools down to a third of what it had been, and they sent us instead 3 times back to those same schools, and we taught them magic flute. First, we taught them what an opera was and all of the rudiments. Then we taught them what the story was and what the arias were. And then we presented the opera to them. And the end of that research project was the third of those educational techniques worked far better and brought far more audience members into the opera house when those people graduated from high school. It was a very interesting experiment, but upon that, I'm basing this class. We're not going to look at as many songs as we possibly can, as I said before. Instead, we're going to look at the repertory on each of your recitals. 2 of you I know don't have recitals. That's not a problem at all. Ellie and Micah, we are going to roll with that. It's been that way before in this class, and we will find our way through that. But still, we're going to significantly limit what it is that we're looking at, and then look at each of them in more depth. At the end of this class, each of you will know the recitals given by all your colleagues. That's why this is based on that. That's why we're doing what we're doing. As I said, go back. So 3 times, you're going to look at each song of the few that we're going to select. First, when they get presented in class. Secondly, when you guys study for the listening exam and take the exam. And then thirdly, each of you will be required to go to your colleagues' recitals and write a reflection on that. So it's 3 times through on the same repertory in hopes that by April, you'll actually feel like you know that repertory is the point. Make sense? Any questions about that? Nope? Cool. I know I'm going a little fast, so tell me if you need me to slow down. With that in mind, you don't need to write this down because the recitals don't begin until the end of March. But I wanted to present what we're going to do when we go to the recitals is each of you will be asked to write a reflection, not a review, but a reflection on the recital that you're hearing after you've already heard much of the background information about the repertory in the recital. I want you to, most importantly, identify the following three things. What's the most important song in your estimation? Historically, why do you think, I don't know, Earl Canik is the most important song on that recital just because that's the one people talk about all the time? That's just fine. Then, the most lovable song. By that, I mean the one that if you could sing, you might have to switch voice types in order to do it, but if you could, which one would you put on your next recital? Then thirdly, I want you to identify, my love of that song and the importance aside, what is technically the most proficient blending of text and music will be what you'll write about come March 27th. That assignment will be due the class period after each recital is presented. Make sense? Now, please notice this next part. As I said, we're going to stress being young professionals and what that means. And one of the things that it means is you may not criticize, you may not critique, you may not write a review, you may not question someone else's vocal technique, you may not make a suggestion for how they never should have worn that dress, or those earrings were awful, or, you know, really, you can't wear flats in a recital. That's just inappropriate. And if you do that for this assignment, you will fail the assignment, okay? You will notice that this is structured very much in the same way that many modern reviews are written. Please just tell us who, what, when, where, and what was the most interesting thing, and then leave off any of the negative stuff. Make sense? Again, we'll review that as we get closer to it, but this is very important to me, and it's something, especially at a small school, that I find many singers don't think about until starting to think about leaving school, is, oh geez, maybe I didn't have to be that nasty to the other soprano. Oh geez, maybe competition is not what it takes alone in order to succeed in this business. So that's why I stress it as importantly as I do. Any questions about that?
I do have a question real fast.
Hit me.
So when describing the songs, can one song be both like important and lovable? And so would you like talk about the song both being important and lovable, or you would like one song each?
Michael, that's a very good question, and it does happen frequently. That the important song happens to be the one we know the best, which means somehow we have a stronger affinity to it. Absolutely. Okay. Song can serve multiple categories. This, as I told you, where the concept for the course came out of my New York City opera experience, this assignment came out of the family next door to me. The mom and dad in the family were both curators at the Art Institute of Chicago. Yes, Molly, the Art Institute of Chicago. And they would take us to the Art Institute and they would give us this assignment, this very same assignment, only about art. It was worded slightly differently. Which one do you want to take home with you? If you won the door prize and you could take one of these pieces home, which one is it? Secondly, which one do you think is the most important? That's the one people talk about. I totally get it. That's right. That's the afternoon on the island of the, oh, that's the Mona Lisa. Yeah, but I don't really like it, but it's important. So that's a very different way of looking at something. And thirdly, which do you think took the most skill in making that painting? And that's a whole different way of looking at an art form, and it makes you think. The purpose of this assignment is multi-layered. Most importantly, it's so that you are an active listener, so that you don't, how many of us go to Convo and we're tired at 5 o'clock on Tuesday and we completely shut down and we go, oh, please, would you just stop singing? I'm paying no attention, blah, 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 blah. I totally get that. This assignment forces you not to do that. It forces you to actively wake up your brain and say, okay, what am I listening to? Why am I listening to it? What's important about this? And do I like this song enough that I might sing this song? Okay, that's that point. Other course goals. As I said, it's based on your, sorry.
Sorry, I had a question on the last one. Are we required to do that for our own recitals?
That's a very good question. No, you are not.
Okay, cool.
No, you're not. And again, we'll review that come March 27th, but it's so important to the content of this class that I wanted to present it today. Other course goals is to help each of you prepare your recital, right? By having another performance opportunity, number one, by helping you dramatically and expressively explore that repertory is number two. Number three, you'll see in a second, you will be asked to analyze and research things, elements of each of your songs that you present in class, and there's a form to fill out. You have copies on your desk, but please don't look at it just yet. We'll go through it in a second. And lastly, it will also help those of you with recitals this semester. It gets 3/4 of the work of writing your recital, your program notes will be done by the end of this class, okay? It all sews together, that's the point. It's my hope that it will help you not be in the way. It's not something layered on top of your education. Again, it's hoping to make connections between all of the classes that you've had while you've been at Simpson and help you prepare to go out into the world, whether that be teaching or in grad school or that's it, I'm done with my musical education, but still I'm gonna sing on Tuesday night for the PTA and I want to know how to do it. That's one of the purposes of this class. Singing Thursdays. Gosh, I'm talking so much. But there's so much to talk about. We will on Thursday talk further in detail about each of these. But because I've been talking so much, please take a breath, because this is where it starts getting a little complex. A week from Thursday, January 23rd, all 8 of you will be presenting in class. The presentations, please look at the rubric page that Molly handed out. Do you all have a copy of the printouts? All right, so I call it Singing Thursdays because they all take place on Thursday. Dr. Park will be joining us every Thursday except when we have an exam or except for next Thursday, for example. And for each of the subsequent ones, 4 people will present on each one, and then I'll continue with the lecture, okay? But each time you present, there are 4 parts to it. Let me first address, each of you will sing 5 times in class, once in Italian, once with early German repertory, meaning written before 1840, second, mid to late German repertory, 1840 and after, then we move to France, then we move to English literature. And while we're talking about this, for the purposes of this class, we're talking about the language it's written in, not the country from where it comes, meaning that German unit also covers Austrian. Make sense? French also covers the French colonies. English also covers both Great Britain and the United States. Make sense? Okay, now, your job for each of your presentations will be to time it. You will need to do a verbal introduction, and you will need to cut your song if necessary so that the total is between 6 and 8 minutes, except for this coming, it's a week from Thursday on the 23rd. Please, nobody go over 6 minutes, otherwise we won't be able to fit all of the presentations in, okay? I do recognize that means many of you will have to trim the sung part. Do not trim the spoken part, however, in order to get in at 6 minutes. Any questions about that? Great. All right. Now, here we get to the nitty-gritty. In the spoken introduction, there are a number of things that are very, very important. First, you have to do just the statistical stuff. What your name is, what the composer's name is, what's the name of the piece, is it from a larger work, and what date was it written, okay? Please begin all of your introductions with that basic introduction. But I'm going to talk about it in a second, but I'm going to introduce it even now. This is going to be confusing for many of you, but it's really important to me. The tone of these presentations is not for the members of class. It's not for me. It's not for the professors at Simpson College. We are presenting these as if we are going into the village down the street, the retirement home, the village. Why I've chosen that particular location is, how many of you have already sung there at a Christmas thing or something? Oh, none of you? Oh, okay. One. It's a most interesting performance situation, and one that many of you will encounter numerous times, is why I chose that. It's an educated audience, but not a musically educated audience. Okay? You cannot talk down to these people. They're not children, but they're also not music colleagues that you can talk about Baroque ABA form and assume they know what the hell you're talking about. Okay? You have to treat them as intelligent, but not as musical experts, and then the rest of this information makes sense. Are there any questions about that? I know I hit it over the head with the sledgehammer, but it is really important, all right? Then, so first it's statistics, then the framework. Is it, if it's from a larger work, how does it fit into the overall opera? Then 3 to 5 vocabulary words or phrases, which will help guide your audience through the listening experience. I'll demonstrate in just a second what I mean by this. Then, this is the hardest one for most people just at your age of development with art song, and that's, why are you singing this song in a different way than perhaps one of your colleagues? What does this song mean to you? And that's why you're in front of us today. Then, after examining all of the 5 Kimball parameters, which we'll get to in a minute, pick one and explain why you chose that one, and then a historical factoid which kind of makes sense. Okay, so here comes, I'll do it again on Thursday, but I'm going to give you an example. All right, so please put your papers down, Molly.